We need a name for it. We'll come up with that. What should the name of this podcast be?
Oh man, I don't know. Surprise Corners with Jon Hamilton.
Done.
You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for clicking on the button for the AV-IT Amplifier again today. As always, my name is Ryan Gray, and I am your host. And if it is Wednesday, then your feed has been refreshed. Your podcast feed, your YouTube, wherever you find us it has been refreshed with new content. And this Wednesday is no exception. We are back again with my friend Jon Hamilton, and if you didn't hear last week, I encourage you to go and listen to it because you're gonna get some brain drops in there that you do not want to miss out on. But Jon, thank you for being back with us again. Could you please remind everybody, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so Jon Hamilton, I am the Senior Audiovisual Manager for Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. And by that default, School of Medicine also entails research and some other things. So I handle research departments and Woodruff Health Sciences.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here. And again, your longevity in the industry is very cool and someone I've stolen wisdom from kind of a time or two in my own world. So I got a list of questions for you here in this one. And I usually try and start off with something to catch people off guard. And I've got one of those, but I'm going to save it a little bit. I'm going to lull you into a false sense of security and then spring it on you like a trap. And then we'll see what happens. So first, here's my question. You have made up a false name for this podcast. I don't appreciate you spreading that kind of misinformation, but you can, make fun of a podcast all you want to. But the question is, if you had a podcast, what would it be about?
Oh God. A serious podcast or just some crap podcast?
Either. Well, are there any podcasts that aren't kind of crap? I feel like all podcasts are, what I'm saying, but yeah.
You've got podcasts that are trying to be helpful. Like you're trying to be helpful.
Not succeeding very well, but we're trying, it's like, yeah.
I don't know whether I would not maybe have something to where I would have people that would come on and talk about something they've never talked about ever before, just for entertainment value.
Yeah.
Get the president of the United States to talk about stripping and waxing floors, or something like this. How do you go about doing that? Is to find something. I guess it would probably be trying to be a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've got that much to teach, and so I would probably be more like, keys, whatever kind of thing like that.
Yeah. Well, I like it, and I'm trying to think. I won't be able to come up with it, but I remember a segment of something where it was like they had an expert on something, but then their one segment was talking to him about something that was specifically not their level of expertise. And just there's an absurdist and fun quality to that, which is like, okay, yeah, well, you may be the top of the line here, but let's talk about this other thing and see what comes from that.
And I've also found more entertaining to go reverse. Find someone that's at the top of their field somewhere and hit them with something that's more mundane.
Yes.
Finding, no offense out there, finding a garbage man and asking them about launching a rocket to the moon.
Right.
You obviously aren't going to know that. But, finding some of these people that are rocket scientists and get them to talk about, hemming a pair of pants, how would that work? Or something like that.
I like it. Okay, so then this makes me want to peel back the onion. So that would be entertaining for you because like it would peel back a layer of the person, like you would get to know them. Like, why is that something that sounds like it would be something you'd be into?
I like listening to people come up with ideas and stuff. So I would love to get someone that say, a high level engineer talk about something that was somewhere it would probably be more in the mental workflow that they would go through. How did they come up with that and what did they do? And then I would probably steal that because, if you
Yeah,
get
exactly.
someone super smart, to talk about something mundane that they have no clue about. And then if they hit close to home, you're like, okay, now this person,
Yeah.
they're not just smart in that field, they're actually smart.
And it seems like then the answer you're getting is not in this world, right? It's not pre-canned, it's not pre-planned, it's not whatever. Like it almost has an improv feel to it, which is just like, no, you get to watch them on the spot work through something, and in that becomes, it's like what you can learn and be entertained by.
And the point is, like, I wouldn't want to catch them off guard. I would
Right.
want them to know this was what it was. So I don't want to
Yeah.
blindside. So I want to see someone that knows they're going to have to do this,
Interesting.
then
Okay.
see them do it. So the
Nice.
funny's not going to be, or the entertainment's not going to be, oh, he called him with something. The
Gotcha.
funny thing is to get them in there and or the entertainment, let's put it that way, because I'm not sure that it's funny, is it's more entertaining, but like I said, I'd like to see some really super smart people work
Yeah.
and just to see how their mind works, and stuff like this.
I love that answer. All right, let's get it started. You know what I'm saying? We need a name for it. We'll come up with that. What should the name of this podcast be?
Oh man, I don't know. Surprise Corners with Jon Hamilton.
Done. And did you see what just happened? You just had to come up with the name of a podcast on your own, and you know what I'm saying? That I don't think is what that was what you were expecting to have to do today. So we made a little bit of it happen.
Me and you have talked before, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. There you
I
go.
could see some curveballs coming.
Yeah, that's probably true. Nice. All right. So in a version of the multiverse where you don't end up working in higher ed or in audiovisual, right? What is an alternate path that you like, either for a career that you think you would have been good at or you would have enjoyed doing?
I think I would have been very good in the military. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it, but I think I would have been very successful in the military. I like pathways to follow. I like rules. I like, stuff like, I mean, the laws of physics, whatever you want to call it, it's just like, is knowing, you walk through this door, you turn right and you get to here and then you get the magic frog, whatever it is that you're doing, it's just like, I enjoy those analytical things and make these steps and these progressions. So I think I would have been successful at that. To tell you the truth, if not in the AV industry, it would be in some other service industry. I told somebody, I was like, this has happened to me before. One time I was working on my lawnmower or something it was, and then one of the neighbors saw that I was working on my lawnmower. And they was like, look, can you take a look at this lawnmower? Can you, whatever? And then they told somebody else. The next thing you know, I've got like 7 clients that I'm doing their lawnmower repair for. Like, I don't want to be the lawnmower repair guy, but I think that's just how I've been ever since I was little, it was always analyzing what was wrong, a problem, solving that problem, and going on. So most of the time it was electromechanical is where I kind of landed at. I was never a great electrical engineer, but I was more like I could track a circuit down to know when it triggered this solenoid to kick in so this thing would turn, and I could follow that schematic through.
Nice. No, I agree. So yeah, that leads in a lot of directions. So it's not electrochemical, but doctors deal with problems of systems and all that are biological. So could you have been a doctor?
No, I think, as we discussed in our previous part, I don't know that I care for people that much.
All right. One, I don't believe you, but I will. I won't push you too hard on
Well, no, I mean, the whole point was, I mean, they have to really care.
Yeah.
It's not that, I wouldn't run off the road to run over someone, but I don't know that I would be like, okay, let me get their brain out of their head and then
Yeah.
tap them, whatever it is, I don't know.
No, there's definitely like so to that thing about a calling, like normal boundaries that other people have. There's a boundary missing for people like doctors, where they're all in on the patient in front of me in a way that, yeah, that doesn't work for everybody to be. So,
Yeah, I don't know that I love anything that much. I mean,
okay, yeah, I know what you're saying.
yeah.
All right. Um, I have sometimes it becomes a little old on the show because I like to ask people, but it becomes a thing I ask everybody, and sometimes you get similar answers. But I would put you in squarely in the extrovert category. In that,
Yes.
even, and it's not even a question. And you talk about, I like to talk to this kind of person. I like to hang out with these kind of people. I want to hear how people's brain works. So, being that kind of extrovert that's a little like, is really engaged by interactions with other people. How has that informed kind of your career, how you've worked, and how you continue to, create success around yourself?
Well, no one, let me say, I was not always as extroverted as I am today.
Okay.
It was something I learned in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Was I was a member of the Future Farmers of America in rural North
Yeah.
Carolina, just in the
Mm-hmm.
sticks and stuff. But I ended up running our county thing and stuff, and I had to deliver meetings, and I was the president. I had to stand up and talk, and so then I had to do something with the future business leaders. So they wanted to see how we did it. So I talked in front of people. So I got a little used to that in high school, of being in front of someone and not being afraid of it. Plus, the fact was, once again, I tried to learn what I was doing and knew how to do it, so it didn't scare me as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, younger in my career, wasn't quite as established with my own feelings, whatever it was, knowing my own worth or feeling my own worth. And so I was a little bit more introverted, meet new people, wouldn't say anything and stuff like this. And then as I got older, I started learning, once again, everyone's the same. I mean, 80% of the people are the same person. Their goals are the same and everything. So it's like most of them aren't going to pick on you or whatever. Just say what you got to say. Is you miss out on every opportunity you don't take advantage of.
Yeah.
So it might be someone that you end up talking to that could change your life. I mean, you don't know. Um, so I'll talk to people in the elevator. I'll do whatever and stuff. And so I think, as far as my career did, it is I'm a lot better of, I'm going to say, salesperson, because I can explain what we're working towards and why it costs this and whatever, and I can come in and I'm not afraid of what I'm talking about, and I'm not scared of myself, and I can be very matter of fact about this is what I'm looking for. Um, what it's done more for is, I think, it's like helped Emory.
Mm.
So, when I'm talking to a manufacturer and I've got to do something, I come to them and I say, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
As I don't play a game with it and we max up this and how to, and it's like, so if it's the financials, if it's technology, whatever, it's like, hey, I can work out this deal and I've got this, but I need this in a kickback, or I've got to do this with a pricing to be able to do this. Can you do that? No, if you can't do it, then I'll find someone else that can, or I'm doing. So I think negotiations and stuff have been way more successful because I will actually get out there and say what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, tell me if you agree with this, because actually you're like kind of watching you is one of the things I've thought about. Because like Yavapai College, where I am, is a small school in Arizona, but saying like, yeah, maybe, but we're on a first name basis with representatives from these manufacturers or these companies, and that sort of like people talk a lot about the value of networking in building your network of people you know, but taking it to the level of, like you said, it benefits, it's not just about me and my network, it benefits my institution to be able to have those connections, be able to speak freely about it, and be able to bring things to the table that might not otherwise have been there.
Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot because I don't want others trying to decide on my successes. You know, it's I don't want a local integrator or something coming over selling to people above me on some kind of idea. Then they put it in and they do it. I would much rather them come to me as the subject matter expert or whatever it is. And then most of my deals, I want them with the manufacturers, not my local integrator. Is I want to talk to someone at Sony and go, look, Emory is doing this, and I need this kind of deal to be able to do what we're going to do successful. Or a Crestron, or who, I mean, pick anybody. I would much rather go directly to them, even though they don't sell directly to me. I mean, I'm not buying anything from them, but I've set up my relationships with the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I think that helps my institution.
For sure. And yeah, you like that model of closing the loop of this industry or any industry, right? From the end, whether it's the end user, the end buyer with the original manufacturer, and getting things worked out there, you know what I'm saying? Where the like, you can talk about it as cutting out the middleman, but what it actually does is like bring the end, it makes the industry, instead of a line where something starts here and moves through, it curves it together to make it a circle. And that way everybody's in communication in some way and nobody's working in the dark.
Yeah, so if you're watching this podcast, I'm going to tell you, any manufacturer in the AV industry especially, is they want to know your problems.
Yeah.
Okay. They want you to tell them what's going on. Now, you need to know what you're saying. You can't just, come up with random, it needs to be better. You need to give them specifics. But they love that. They love that. And I get so many of them calling me. So not a lot of people do it. So they're like, oh, I can call John and he'll tell me. And I'm like, yep, absolutely.
When the key, like you said there, because not only will you give them, you're not afraid to give accurate feedback. You're not going to attempt to give feedback that, like, you're going to tell them the truth and tell them the truth in a useful way, right? That's constructive, right? That feedback.
Well, they always come back to me, help me help you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what they're saying to me, and I'm saying, help me help you. If I have a problem that can be solved by a manufacturer, I'm just a little person out there. There's millions more of me that I promise you have the exact same problem. So if they build that solution, they're not just solving my little problem, they're solving a problem in the industry.
Yeah. And I love that. Help me help you, help it both. Like, we need them as much as they need us. They need us much as we need them. Like, it's a symbiotic relationship, and inhabiting our side of that relationship for the betterment of the industry and then what we can deliver for people.
Well, how many people have ever talked about this, win-win? I mean, you've heard win-win. I mean, over and over and over and over again. But a few weeks ago, I was with a manufacturer and an integrator. And we were working on this deal that we were thinking about, whatever. And the guy's like, well, that would be win-win-win. He's like, so if I could, and it was where we could meet in the middle.
Yeah.
But if anybody in the three were playing a game or not telling the truth or couldn't, then it's all going to fall apart. When it gets to your piece, and it's like, okay, one guy's like, if I can give up 10% here, then I can push it over here, and then you can gain this 10, and then if you'll drop back that 5 and give it over here, whether it's solutions or money or whatever it is, those percentages get shuffled around a little bit. And, it's like when you're dealing with 2, win-win's pretty easy. When you're dealing with 3, it gets a little bit more complicated. When you're dealing with 5, it's asinine complicated,
right.
And it's like, so, being someone that can hold that 5 together and merge that in, is always a strong setting.
Right. But I think your insight that, like, the more people involved, the more like genuine, all cards on the table, not holding anything back, people have to be in order to create those, right? You go into that situation and you're working with them on how many points can a manufacturer give and no. But if you're doing it just because you're trying to save as much money as possible and the number you've given them as your budget isn't actually real or whatever, like if you're manipulating them much as then same thing, the whole thing falls apart.
Yep.
You got to have trust to be able to build wins.
That becomes age and network.
Yeah, for sure.
It's that you either have to spend a lot of time building it, or you have to get introduced into it.
Right.
Okay, so Ryan, I've been around a lot longer than you have. But like we were at this one event, the first time, you say it's the first time we ever met, but I thought we had met before.
Right.
But anyway, was like, so I grabbed you and took you to a dinner with a bunch of these other manufacturers that I had that I introduced you to. And then you were like, oh, well, this is cool. Let me get involved and let me, work. And so, you took up some of that. So you don't necessarily have to build the network. You have to hang on to someone. And once again, going back to, you need to be a decent person. I don't play a lot of games. I'm more matter of fact. If you come and ask me and I go, no, then it's no. It's just not, so, I think that's part of it. And when you get to these involvement with 5 or 10 people that all have to get win, you have to be able to trust each other. You have to know each other. And, it either comes with you get someone hands you a chip or you build that chip.
Yeah. And to your point, like first thing, but like you talked about, like, you either have to build it or get brought into a network, but a key part of that is people who help each other do it, right? Like I have this contact, I know this person, and I think they could work together. And I'm not trying to protect, it's not like, well, let me stand in the middle of this. And no, my job is to bring people together for the betterment of everyone.
Well, and even go back to, is it your job or is it just something like I enjoy doing it? I enjoy, hey, here's a person. Someone asked me the other day, they were like, look, would it be a conflict of interest if you started like leading some stuff my way or doing this? And I'm like, it all depends on what, I was like, we've got this new program coming out. I'm like, well, I can tell people about the new program. It was like, well, what would I need to pay you? And I'm like, you don't need to pay me anything. This is just what I do. You know. And kind of thing. And they were like, what? And I was like, no, it's, that's just, my thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much your thing. You can tell, how much you take pride in doing that. So, all right, you've led into my gotcha question by bringing up that event where I'm sure that's the first time I met you. True or false? I have a picture of you with no shirt on.
You do. True.
Okay. And true or false? I have never shared or shown it to anyone.
Unknown.
Okay. Well, I will clarify true.
Okay.
Why?
Why will you clarify?
Why would I never share that with anybody else?
You told me you would not.
I know, but I'm pretty sure you may have laid in some consequences if I did.
Well, that night, that was probably, 3:00 in the morning?
It was something like that.
Yeah. Everyone can take out of that what they want to.
Yeah.
And so when I came back to it, I was like, look, this was just us messing around. And if you're going to be showing that picture, then, the consequences were more dire, but let's just say that you will not be my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you can either stand on that or not.
Exactly.
Once again.
But I said I wouldn't, and I did it, and I feel like that was a trust building activity.
But I have a feeling you have.
I have now. I cannot for sure. I was never left my device. I have never given it to anybody. I feel like if I've ever shown it to somebody, it would have had to have been someone else in the picture. The only time that would be someone else who was there at the time, but not the people who weren't there at the time.
So you didn't fly back home and go, hey, you need to see this picture when I was out at 3:00 in the morning to your wife.
I've done that with other things. I don't even know if I would have shown my wife that.
Okay.
But I show my wife that picture of you with no shirt on, and before you know it, she's not my wife anymore, and she's moving
And
to
she'll be
Emory.
knocking on my door like, most others. That's why I don't do a lot of these.
Exactly.
People don't want to put me out there, and stuff.
No, I took it very seriously. I'm not messing around with that. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, people are as good as their word, and
Yeah.
usually your threats, they'll let them know how serious you are about it. But there again, is people are still as good as their word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when
Exactly.
you ask someone to do something or you ask them not to do it and they say they will or they won't, that's not a convenience factor.
Right.
That's I gave my word. This is what I was going to do or not going to do. And like I said, I take those things very seriously.
Yeah. I totally understand, and you help other people take them seriously as well.
I don't know about that.
Well, you've helped me take that one seriously because I wouldn't dare. I figure if I ever sent that to somebody, you would show up immediately and have known that I did it. So,
Well, I mean, I go with a lot of times though in the industry and some places we hang out, especially in higher ed and stuff,
yeah.
is that there's people I think avoid me, more than grasp me. Is they're like, ooh, I don't know, John, I can handle John tonight, all right, whatever it is, and in the industry outside of higher ed, I don't run into that hardly ever. I mean,
Yeah.
with anyone in the higher ed environment, I do. I think I deal with a lot more introverts, and like I said, I'm way over here.
Yes.
I'm not close to the middle even. So and so I do think there's some people, like I said, whether they learn or even want to hear what I say. They're more like, oh, here goes another buffoon with whatever he's got going on.
Yeah.
I always go, you never have to listen to me or take any of my advice or whatever. It's me telling you what I've learned and my viewpoints.
Yeah. Well, I will vouch that regardless of the company, Jon Hamilton's is always a good hang. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a good hang for me. So, okay. Same last three questions for everybody. Ready? Third to last question. Third to last question is, what is a question you wish you would be asked, but nobody ever asks you?
I don't know. Not a lot of people ask, like, what's my thing?
That's a fair question. Okay, so what's your thing?
Now, is this the second question? You said you had three, so that two now?
No, this is the first. This is a sub question to third to last question.
Okay, so I really love to go deep sea fishing, like big game, marlin, tuna, whatever stuff. I really, if someone had a trip set up, I would want to go do that. And what I had found is that everyone has a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. And we get together, we end up talking about AV and the same other stuff, all that. But no, I remember you've told stories about deep sea fishing before.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
That's awesome. Okay, well, everybody, and let's get John out deep sea fishing here.
If you're in Cabo San Lucas and you need me to come along for ballast, I'm in.
Perfect. I love
San Diego or something, whatever.
Nice. All right. Second to last question, which would be, if people wanted to get in contact or get connected to you in some way after hearing you on the show, how would they go about doing it?
So my email address is john.hamilton@emory.edu. I always go through my emails, whatever. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yep. And I'll again vouch for it. John is a master of making connections and connecting other people. So it's hard to recommend anyone more than you as someone to get connected to, talk to, and if you're in the same place, strike up a conversation. You know what I'm saying?
If I can help, I'm always glad to help.
Yeah, it will pay off in spades, I promise. Okay, finally, last question. So, and I always have the worst setup, but I haven't figured out a better way to do it. But the old historic newscasters would usually end their broadcast with a sign-off phrase, right? Good night and good luck, or something like that. And the hosts of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, the same thing. I'm Chevy Chase and you're not, or whatever those things are. So, what is Jon Hamilton's drop the mic sign-off phrase?
Ooh, I don't know. out of here, something. I'm out. It's just like tap out. It's kind of thing like that, maybe, whatever. Like I said, I mean, if you want to go one more further than that, if you want to know, like, my thing was like, you talk to a decent guy is word from someone that's trying to be decent. Boom,
Nice.
kind of thing like that. That'd be my tombstone. He was a decent guy, stand-up guy.
Thank you for listening to the AVIT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.